Welcome to Calm Mind English. If life feels too heavy right now, this is for you. Not for the version of you that feels strong, focused, and ready. This is for the version of you that feels worn down, mentally full, and quietly tired. The kind of tired that stays even after sleep. The kind that makes simple things feel strangely hard. There are seasons when life becomes heavy all at once. A problem happens, something breaks, and you feel it immediately. But many times, it happens more slowly. A little stress stays longer than it should. A few hard days turn into a hard month. You keep pushing, keep answering, keep handling things, and somewhere in the middle of it, your heart starts feeling crowded. Then one day, you notice that even small things feel heavier than before. A message feels like pressure. A simple decision feels annoying. One more responsibility feels unfair. You are still functioning, but it feels like your inner world is carrying too much. That feeling is real. And the first thing I want to say is this. Feeling overwhelmed does not always mean you are weak. It often means you have been carrying more than your mind and body can hold comfortably. That is not failure. That is a limit. A human limit. Today, let us not begin with blame. Let us not begin with pressure. Let us not begin with the idea that you need to fix your whole life tonight. Let us begin with something quieter. Let us begin by understanding what this heaviness really is. Sometimes people say, life feels too heavy, but they never stop long enough to ask what the weight is made of. That question matters. Because when pain stays vague, it feels larger. When you begin to see its shape, it becomes easier to handle. For some people, the weight is emotional. There may be sadness that never had a place to go, disappointment that kept building, hurt that was pushed aside because life did not slow down long enough for healing, anger that had to stay hidden because there was no safe place to express it. For others, the pressure is mostly mental. Too many thoughts, too many unfinished things, constant worry, constant comparison, a mind that keeps running even when the body is trying to rest. Then there is practical stress, work, money, parenting, family pressure, career uncertainty, health concerns, problems that do not disappear just because you are already tired. And many people are carrying all three at the same time. Emotional weight, mental weight, daily life pressure. Of course that feels heavy. Anyone would feel it. But instead of noticing that honestly, many people do something else. They turn their pain into self-judgment. They say, why am I acting like this? I should be handling this better. Other people seem fine. I need to stop being weak. That reaction creates an extra layer of suffering. Now there is the original pain, and then there is shame on top of it. That second burden drains people deeply, because pain is already hard enough. When you add self-contempt to it, the mind becomes even more tired. So one of the first things to do in a heavy season is to stop talking to yourself like an enemy. You do not need to praise yourself in fake ways. You do not need to pretend everything is beautiful. You only need to be fair. Fair sounds like this. I am struggling right now. This season is heavy. I have been carrying a lot. My state deserves attention. That kind of honesty changes the atmosphere inside you. It gives you room to breathe. And that is important because emotional recovery rarely begins with force. It usually begins with clear recognition. When you can finally admit, without drama and without denial, that something inside you is overloaded. You stop wasting energy pretending to be untouched. That is not weakness. That is maturity. Some people fear that if they admit they are not okay, they will become less capable. In reality, the opposite is often true. When you refuse to see your real condition, you keep making choices from exhaustion. You keep asking too much from yourself. You keep acting as if your inner state does not matter. That usually makes life harder, not better. Awareness is not a problem. It is the start of wiser action. So if your life feels too heavy, begin there. Not with a grand solution, not with a new life plan. Start by telling the truth. You are tired. You are carrying a lot. You need steadiness, not more punishment. Now let us go a little deeper. Sometimes the heaviness of today is not only about today. A hard moment in the present can wake up older pain. A small rejection can touch an old fear of not being enough. A stressful day can open the door to years of pressure. One disappointment can remind you of many others that were never fully processed. This is why your reaction can feel bigger than the event. It is not always about one thing. It is often about layers. That matters because many people try to solve layered pain with very shallow advice. They tell themselves to calm down, to stop overthinking, to just move on, to be positive. But pain that has history inside it does not disappear because you gave it a short command. It needs more honesty than that. It needs more patience. If you have been wondering why you still feel heavy even after trying to stay functional, this may be part of the answer. You may not be reacting to one hard day. You may be responding to many unspoken things all at once. That does not mean you are broken. It means your inner life is asking to be seen more clearly. A helpful question is this: what has been hurting me more than I admit? Not what sounds dramatic, not what would impress anyone, just what is true. Maybe you are more discouraged than you realized. Maybe you are tired of being responsible all the time. Maybe you feel unseen. Maybe you are carrying fear about the future. Maybe you are exhausted from pretending things bother you less than they really do. These answers do not need to be perfect. Even beginning to ask changes something. Because once the pain becomes more specific, it becomes more workable. Instead of saying, "Everything is wrong," you may start to notice, "I am mentally overloaded and emotionally lonely." That is a very different sentence. Or instead of saying, "I cannot handle life," you may realize, "I am worn out, disappointed, and trying to solve too many things at once." Again, that is different. Clear naming does not erase pain, but it reduces confusion. And confusion is one of the things that makes hard seasons feel unbearable. The more vague the suffering, the more powerful it feels. This is why language matters. When your mind says only, "I feel bad," it is hard to respond wisely. But when you can say, "I feel pressured," or "I feel discouraged," or "I feel emotionally full," your next step becomes easier to see. Accurate language creates emotional space. And emotional space is very valuable when life feels too heavy. Now let us talk about thoughts. A heavy life usually comes with heavy thinking. When people are overwhelmed, the mind often moves toward extremes. Nothing is working. I am failing at everything. I will never figure this out. It is too late. I cannot do this anymore. These thoughts can feel very convincing in tired moments. But a tired mind is not always a truthful mind. When your system is under pressure, thoughts often become louder and darker. They start sounding final. One problem becomes your whole life. One difficult week becomes evidence that nothing will improve. One painful emotion becomes a judgment about your future. That is why it helps to treat some thoughts carefully. Not every thought deserves automatic trust. Some thoughts are observations. Some are fear. Some are fatigue speaking in a serious voice. If your mind says, "Everything is a mess," pause for a moment. Is everything a mess? Or are there a few parts of life that feel especially hard right now? If your mind says, "Nothing is getting better," ask again. Is nothing getting better? Or are you in a discouraging season where progress is too slow to feel exciting? If the thought says, "I cannot handle this," look closer. Do you truly have no ability to cope? Or are you deeply tired and trying to carry too much at once? This kind of questioning is not denial. It is emotional discipline. It means you are refusing to let overwhelmed thinking become your only truth. That matters because your thoughts shape your next action. If you believe everything is hopeless, you pull back. If you believe you are failing everywhere, you start acting from panic or shame. If you believe nothing will change, you stop looking for the next useful step. But when your thinking becomes a little more balanced, your options return. A calmer sentence can change the whole direction of your day. You may say, "This is hard, but not everything is ruined." Or, "I am overloaded, so I will not judge my whole life from this state." Or, "I do not need to believe every dark thought that arrives when I am exhausted." That is a healthier way to hold your mind. Notice that this is not dramatic positivity. It is not pretending life is easy. It is simply refusing to let pain speak with total authority. Now we move to something very practical. How do you get through the day when the day still expects things from you? Because many people do not have the luxury of shutting everything down. There is still work to do. There are still children to care for, meals to make, emails to answer, duties to finish. This is where overwhelm becomes dangerous. When everything feels heavy, the mind starts carrying the whole day at once. Not just the next task. The whole day. Tomorrow too. Next week as well. Your future, your worries, your guilt, your unfinished things, and the pressure to keep functioning on top of all of that. Anyone would feel crushed by that. So when life feels too heavy, stop trying to carry the whole day in your head. Carry one part. That is one of the most practical forms of calm. What is the next thing that actually needs your attention? Just the next thing. Maybe you need to drink water. Maybe you need to answer one message. Maybe you need to shower. Maybe you need to make one simple meal. Maybe you need to sit down for 2 quiet minutes before continuing. That is enough for the moment. Small actions are not meaningless in hard seasons. They are how you return to the ground. People sometimes think progress only counts when it looks impressive. But during overwhelming times, basic steadiness is real progress. Getting out of bed may be progress. Washing the dishes may be progress. Staying kind when your nerves are thin may be progress. Taking a short walk instead of spiraling for another hour may be progress. Quiet progress still matters. And there are seasons when quiet progress is the only honest kind. This is important because people often create impossible standards for recovery. They imagine healing as one clear breakthrough, one perfect routine, one turning point where everything suddenly makes sense. Real life is usually slower than that. You may feel better for 2 days and then heavy again. You may understand a pattern and still struggle with it. You may make progress in one area while another part of you still feels tender. That does not mean nothing is working. It means healing is not a straight line. Please remember that. A difficult day does not erase all the better days that came before it. Needing rest again does not mean you are back at the beginning. Emotional heaviness returning does not prove you learned nothing. It simply means you are still in process. And being in process is different from being stuck. Now let us talk about pressure. A large part of heaviness comes not only from pain, but from expectation. You expect yourself to be stronger, faster, more disciplined, more cheerful, less affected, more productive, more certain. Sometimes the mind is not collapsing because life is impossible. It is collapsing because the expectations never stop. At some point, you have to ask a serious question. What am I demanding from myself right now? And is that demand fair? Maybe you are expecting clarity while living in uncertainty. Maybe you are asking for peak performance while emotionally drained. Maybe you are comparing your current capacity to a version of yourself that had more rest, less pressure, or fewer responsibilities. That comparison is not fair. Current capacity changes. Stress changes it. Grief changes it. Parenting changes it. Big transitions change it. Disappointment changes it. Long-term emotional strain changes it. You are not always meant to function at the same level in every season. Wisdom means responding to the season you are actually in, not the one you wish you were in. A heavy season may require slower goals, simpler plans, fewer unnecessary battles, and more honesty about what you can and cannot carry well right now. That is not laziness. That is adjustment. And healthy people know how to adjust. Now I want to speak to the person who is tired of always being strong. Maybe you are the responsible one, the dependable one, the person who keeps things moving, the person other people lean on. From the outside, that can look impressive. Inside, it can become exhausting. When people are used to your strength, they may not notice when you are reaching your limit. They assume you will handle it. They assume you are fine. They assume you can carry one more thing. Sometimes you even assume the same. So you keep going. You help. You respond. You stay useful. And meanwhile, a quiet part of you is getting more tired than anyone sees. That kind of tiredness can become very lonely. Because the stronger your image becomes, the harder it can feel to admit you are struggling. But let this be clear. Capable people also get overwhelmed. Reliable people also need support. Strong people also need rest. Needing care does not erase your strength. It proves you are a person. You do not have to become helpless. You do not have to collapse in front of everyone. But you may need to stop acting as if silence is the same as strength. Sometimes real strength is saying, "This is too much for me right now." Or, "I need help with this." Or, "I cannot keep carrying things in this way." Those are not weak sentences. They are honest ones. And honest sentences often open the door to healthier living. Now, not everyone has safe people around them. Not everyone has deep emotional support. That is real. So I do not want to give empty advice. But I do want to say this. Do not isolate yourself so much that your pain becomes the only voice you hear. Even one honest moment of connection can help. A conversation with a trusted friend. A message to someone who listens well. A counselor. A pastor. A support group. A quiet admission that you have been having a hard time. You do not always need someone to solve your whole life. Sometimes what helps most is simply being seen accurately. Pain grows heavier when it stays hidden too long. And even if you cannot access the kind of support you want right now, you can still support yourself more wisely. One important way is by reducing unnecessary pressure. Notice what makes your mind worse. Certain types of content may tighten your chest. Some conversations may leave you drained. Endless scrolling may overstimulate your thoughts. Solving major life problems late at night may make your nervous system more tense. Pay attention to that. You may not be able to remove every difficult thing, but you can reduce some of the added strain. A quieter room can help. Less noise can help. A simpler to-do list can help. Choosing not to argue when your energy is already low can help. Putting your phone down for a while can help. Stepping outside for a few minutes can help. These changes may look small, but small relief matters when your system is already overloaded. You do not always need intensity. Many times, what you need most is stability. That is a different goal. A lot of people have learned to chase constant improvement. More discipline, more productivity, more output, more control. But in some seasons, the wisest move is not to push harder. It is to regulate, to calm the system, to make your inner world more livable again, to recover enough clarity that you can think and choose more wisely. That kind of recovery is quiet, but it is powerful, because a settled mind makes better decisions than a desperate one. Now let us talk about something many overwhelmed people secretly fear. The fear that it will always feel like this. This fear usually grows when exhaustion stays for a long time. After enough hard days, the mind starts turning the present into a permanent story. You think, this is my life now. I am always going to feel this way. Maybe this is just who I am. But feelings are not good fortune tellers. Today's heaviness is real, but it is not necessarily a prediction of your entire future. You may be in a difficult season. You may need support. You may need change. You may need deeper healing than you first realized. All of that can be true. Still, It is dangerous to let your current pain define the whole road ahead. Many people who later found peace once believed they never would. Many people who now live with more steadiness once thought they would always feel trapped inside themselves. Pain narrows vision. It makes tomorrow hard to imagine. So when that fear comes, answer it gently. You do not need to promise yourself a perfect future. You only need a more honest sentence. This feels heavy right now, but right now is not forever. That is a sentence worth keeping. Another truth that helps is this. You do not need a full map to take a real step. People often freeze because they want total clarity before they move. They want to know exactly what to do, exactly how life will unfold, exactly when they will feel normal again. Life does not always work like that. Often, one clear step reveals the next. You rest more, and then your thinking becomes clearer. You set one boundary, and then you see where else your energy is leaking. You stop one harmful habit, and then another layer becomes easier to face. Progress usually arrives through movement, not through perfect certainty. So if life feels too heavy, stop demanding a full explanation for everything. Look for the next honest step. Sometimes that step is emotional. Admitting what hurts, letting yourself cry, naming what you are tired of. At other times, the step is practical. Making an appointment, cleaning a small space, writing down the 3 things that are crowding your mind, going to bed earlier, saying no to one extra commitment. And sometimes progress is simply choosing not to make the day worse, not sending the angry message, not talking to yourself with cruelty, not making a huge life decision in the middle of mental exhaustion, not feeding the spiral for another hour. That counts too. Now I want to speak to another kind of heaviness. Not sharp pain, not total breakdown. Something quieter than that. The kind where you keep functioning, but you do not really feel alive inside. You still show up. You still do what needs to be done. You are present in body, but something inside feels distant. There may not even be one dramatic reason. It can feel more like emotional grayness, a loss of warmth, a quiet disconnection from yourself. If that is where you are, please do not ignore it simply because you are still functioning. Functioning is not the same as living well. You may need moments that bring you back to yourself. Not glamorous moments, not expensive solutions, just real, human moments. A warm drink without rushing, a short walk with no phone, a slow breath with your hand over your chest, a song that lets you feel something, a page of honest writing, a few minutes looking at the sky, prayer, silence, sitting beside someone you love without trying to perform. These things may seem ordinary, but they help restore connection. And connection matters. When life gets too heavy, one of the first things people lose is connection. Connection to peace. Connection to beauty. Connection to their own inner voice. Connection to the sense that life still belongs to them. This is why small moments should not be dismissed. In hard seasons, small moments become more important, not less. They remind you that life is not only pressure. There is still softness somewhere. There is still breath. There is still meaning that survives under the noise. Now let us come back to the day itself. How do you make it through a hard day without feeling completely defeated? Here is a gentler question then. How do I fix my whole life? Ask this instead. What would wise care look like in this moment? That question is more useful. Wise care may look like rest. It may look like movement. It may look like a meal, a shower, silence, or one simple task. In some moments, wise care means stopping early. In others, it means doing the next necessary thing without drama. There are also times when wise care means forgiving yourself for not performing at your best. That matters a lot. Many people judge themselves based on what they can do on a strong day. Then they attack themselves for not reaching that same level in a heavy season. That is not fair. You should not measure today's tired body and crowded mind against a version of yourself that had more energy, more hope. or less pressure? Measure today honestly. Then respond honestly. Maybe success today means staying calm in one difficult conversation. Maybe it means finishing only what truly matters. Maybe it means resting before collapse. Maybe it means reducing your self-criticism by even 10%. That is still success. In fact, that kind of success may be exactly what this season requires. Before we close, I want to speak to the person who feels behind. Sometimes heaviness comes from the belief that your life should look different by now. You think you should be further ahead, more settled, more accomplished, more certain, more healed. That comparison creates extra sorrow. But a slower season is not the same as a ruined life. A delayed chapter is not the same as a failed one. You may be rebuilding. You may be surviving. You may be learning deeper lessons than people can see from the outside. None of that is wasted. Life is rarely as clean as people pretend. Some paths are slower. Some chapters are messy. Some forms of growth are invisible for a long time. That does not mean nothing is happening. It only means that not all progress is public. So if you feel behind, please do not turn delay into hopelessness. Your path may be slower right now. That is all. And finally, let us talk about the end of the day. Night can be difficult for heavy minds. When the room becomes quiet, thoughts often get louder. Worries that stayed in the background all day come forward. The body becomes more tired, and the mind becomes less balanced. If evenings are hard for you, create a softer landing. Write down what is unfinished so your brain does not try to hold everything during rest. Lower the noise around you. Step away from things that make your nervous system more tense. Let the body feel that the day is slowing down. And speak to yourself differently before sleep. Do not review the day like a harsh manager. Do not collect evidence against yourself like a critic. Do not prepare tomorrow's pressure before tonight has even ended. Try a steadier voice. Today was hard, and I carried a lot. I do not need to solve everything tonight. I am allowed to rest before everything is fixed. This day was heavy, but it is ending now. That kind of self-talk helps the body soften. And if tears come at night, let them come without shame. Sometimes crying is not a sign that you are falling apart. Sometimes it is the body finally releasing what it had to hold in all day. Let that be human. You do not need to look strong in every private moment. If life feels too heavy right now, remember this. You do not need to rebuild your whole world today. You do not need to force clarity. You do not need to become cheerful on command. Begin smaller. Notice what hurts. Name what is real. Question the cruel thoughts. Carry one part of the day. Reduce what you can. Choose steadiness over performance. Let small moments matter. Rest without making rest feel like guilt. That is a real beginning. A heavy season can make you forget who you are. It can make you think you are only your exhaustion, only your confusion, only your discouragement. But that is not the whole truth. You are a person in a hard season, a person under strain, a person who has been carrying a lot, a person who needs care, not contempt. That is a more honest story. So if all you can do today is breathe a little deeper, soften your grip a little, and take one honest step, let that be enough for now. Not forever, just for today. And sometimes, getting through one day with honesty and gentleness is how healing begins. When life feels too heavy, start here. Start with truth. Start with softer thinking. Start with one useful step. Start with the tired part of you that is still trying. That part of you matters too. And with time, with honesty, and with wiser care, the weight may begin to change. Maybe not all at once, but enough for you to breathe again.